Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Chronic Chronicles. I'm your host, Lexi Halloran, and today we have a solo episode. We're going to talk about a lot, kind of a mix of things that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but we're going to make them flow together. And I'm just so excited. I feel like we haven't had a solo episode in a little while, so first things first, I kind of want to catch up with you guys. I mean, we're going into the holiday season. Where are we? What day are we on? I'm recording this on November 15th, Friday, and this episode is going to go out on Monday, so November 18th. So honestly, I normally record things a little bit further out than this, but the holiday season is just so chaotic. And yeah, we're recording it today. I don't know. Everything just flies by. I feel like my birthday was like 2 days ago, but it was October 21st, so it was like a couple weeks ago. And I mean, before that, we were in Michigan for weddings, and I know I like talked about that, but that felt like it was like a week ago, and that was like almost 2 months ago. Like that is crazy. And yeah, so we are about 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. Insane. And Christmas is going to be here before we know it. I just, I don't even know. I'm thinking about like all the holiday things. So, my small business, Coastline Chic Designs, the holiday collection, most of it is out now. I mean, my small business, it's like incredibly small. So, I didn't put out that much for the holiday collection, but a few things that like I really love and I'm really excited about. And we will have some Black Friday sales. You can always use code Chronic Chronicles for 15% off, like whenever on my small business. And we also have like a Chronic Chronicles collection as well. That's for, I mean, like it's not exactly like podcast merchandise. Like it doesn't say Chronic Chronicles anywhere on anything. Maybe I should. Would you guys like that? Would you like anything that says Chronic Chronicles? Maybe I'll do a giveaway. I don't know. I have thoughts. We'll talk more about that as it comes closer. But, anyways, yeah, the Chronic Chronicles collection on my small business's website, always 15% off. I mean, site wide with that discount code as well. But there are some like endometriosis things, some like funny mugs. There's some EDS merch. I don't know. Maybe I should make some other chronic illnesses like diabetes, stuff like that. Now I'm having like thoughts about more things I should make, and I really can't be doing that because I'm over budget for that. But full transparency, that's what it's like running a small business, though. Like you have so many ideas for so many things, but you have budgets, and that is the crappy thing about life is money. Anyways, completely off topic. The point was is that the holiday season is coming and everything is chaotic. Like everything. My small business, the podcast, like planning everything for the podcast. We're gonna have some giveaways coming up. A whole bunch of things I'm very excited for, and everything is just coming so fast. I mean, before we know it, I'm gonna be cooking a freaking turkey. So, yeah, and we're staying home for the holidays, like home in Washington. We're not going back to Michigan this year. Flights are just insanely expensive. And again, like everything is just so busy. So I will be making a turkey and we're actually going to pick out a Christmas tree tonight. I'm very excited about that. Very excited to go find a Christmas tree. But, anyways, that is kind of like what's going on in my life right now. Chaos. I feel like everybody feels like that around the holiday season. I'm also going to put out some gift guides on the Instagram. So make sure you go follow us on Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod because we'll be doing some like gift guides and fun things like that. My weekly report. So R is for reading. I think I said this like months ago, but I was reading the Throne of Glass series and I stopped in the middle of book three, I think like 3 months ago, and I have not picked it back up, which I don't really do. Like, I always finish books. I don't think I've ever like stopped in the middle of a book and like never finished it. This is by far the longest I've gone. And I think, I don't know, I was just feeling a little bit burnt out on series. Like, I read a bunch of series back to back. So I did read a couple of random books. I'm in a book club, so I read a couple of books for book club. just like standalone books, and they were okay. And then I also got a Kindle for my birthday, so now I'm feeling inspired to be reading just like a shit ton of things. So, anyways, long story short, I have started reading book three again. And I'm excited about that because I'm feeling like I want to finish this series, which I really do like the characters. I don't know. Has anyone else read A Throne of Glass and like been just not, I don't know, like not feeling like book three is really that entertaining? Yeah. I'm gonna finish it though, and I'm definitely gonna keep reading the series. And I've also now with the Kindle, I have Kindle Unlimited for a couple of months because it's new. And I downloaded a bunch of like Christmassy books, like Hallmarky Christmas cliche vibe books. And I'm excited to read those too. I personally love really cliche holiday movies and books. So if I find any that are good on the Kindle, I will let you guys know. I'll probably do like a Instagram story. Like these are the books that I got from Kindle Unlimited. Okay, eating. I've been eating holiday desserts like nonstop and making a new like holiday treat every week. So growing up, we would make Christmas cookies and like a whole bunch of like different Christmas like like the wreaths, haystacks, chocolate covered pretzels, normal sugar cookies, cookies with like pretzels and mini M&Ms and like stuff like that. So we'd have like a bunch of things right before Christmas, Rice Krispie treats and stuff like that. So we'd have like all these treats like right before Christmas, but we wouldn't have them like all throughout the month. And I normally do that now as an adult. Like I make cookies and stuff around Christmas. But I've been feeling very in the holiday spirit since like the 1st of November this year. So I've been making like like I wrote out a list of all the holiday treats that I want for this year. And I've been making like one of them every week. So that way we have like a treat every week instead of doing like 27 treats the week before Christmas because we're just going to be on sugar highs. So instead of being on a sugar high for a couple days before Christmas, we're going to be on sugar high for the next 6 weeks. So this past week I made those monster cookies or whatever that have, like pretzels and oatmeal and M&Ms and chocolate chips and all that stuff like in a cookie. And those are really good. And then last week I made Oreo balls. Delish. Nothing healthy about any of this stuff, but that's okay. It's the holiday season. Playing kind of goes into eating as well. I've been into baking. And I mean, the baking really started in the fall season, but now I've been trying to raise a sourdough starter. His name is Eugene. Sometimes I call him or her, depending on the day. I've been trying to raise Eugene for the last 6 weeks, and Eugene is very temperamental, okay? Very temperamental. He does not want to thrive. He doesn't want to thrive. He wants to die, is all I have to say. He's smelt great. Eugene has smelt great, the starter for weeks, but they're not doubling. Like Eugene has been rising, but he hasn't really been falling, but he's super bubbly and he looks active. Um, but he's not like doubling and he's not passing the float test, so I haven't baked with him yet. But spoiler alert, I'm going to bake with him today, even though he is not passing the float test. So anybody that is like really stringent on sourdoughs might hate me for that, and it might fail epically, but we're just gonna try. I'm like, I don't know. At this point, like it's super bubbly and it looks active and it smells fine. And it's been 6 weeks. So I'm like, we're just gonna try. We're just gonna try to bake some bread and see what happens. So I'm starting for anyone that makes sourdough knows that it's kind of like a 2-day process. So I'm starting day one today. I fed him this morning and then he'll actually get baked tomorrow morning. So hopefully he comes out yummy and delish, and I can just keep baking with the sourdough that is not passing the float test, and we'll see how that goes. That's my playing is baking, just really trying to get into having a thriving sourdough so that I can be in my baker era. Obsessing, obsessing over Hallmark Christmas movies. I love traditional cliche rom-com Hallmark Christmas movies. Like I love them. I could sit there And I do. And like on a Saturday, I watch like 5 of them in a row. Like I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to fall in love and it's cute and whatever. And my boyfriend is like, "How can you watch the It's like literally watching the same movie in a different font 10,000 times over." And I'm like, "I love them. I love them." And ironically, the other day I was like, "Oh, this movie seems kind of familiar. Like I might have watched this one." And I definitely did. And I didn't even realize that I had watched that same movie until like the end when like something gave me deja vu and I was like, "Oh yeah, I definitely watched this movie," because they're all so similar and you don't really know anyways. So, anyways, I love them. I've since November 1st when I allowed myself to start watching them, I think I've watched like 15. So, if that tells you anything, but they are my comfort and I love them. I love the holiday season because of that, because I just slam through Hallmark Christmas movies. I'm recommending decorating for the holidays. A lot of people say to wait until after Thanksgiving, and I've just never been that person. I've never been in that kind of family. I say decorate when your heart feels ready. So I'm recommending decorating for the holidays. Like I said, we're going and getting a Christmas tree tonight, and I will be putting that baby up and decorating it. And I mean, I've already like started decorating our apartment for Christmas. Like we have our stockings out and we have like the mantle decorated and stuff. So whenever your heart feels pulled to decorate for the holidays, you should do it. You don't have to wait until after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a day. The holidays are a season, okay? We celebrate Thanksgiving for the day and then we go back to the holidays. And it doesn't even have to be like Christmas decorating. It can just be like holiday decorating and like winter season and candles and vibey. Okay. I love it. Treating. I have started using ClassPass, which my one issue with ClassPass is that you get charged fees if you cancel within 12 hours of the class, which I understand as a business owner. But as somebody with a chronic illness that like my endo can flare literally whenever it wants to, and it can flare a couple like 5 hours before my workout class, and then I can't go because I'm in pain. And then I have to pay fees for that when I'm on my broke girl budget. So I'm like, that is not a good thing for me. So I don't know if I will be continuing ClassPass after this month, but it sucks because I really like ClassPass. Like you're able to go to a wide variety of workout classes and yoga classes and stuff like that. And I've done a couple that I really like, but I had one that I had a flare up within the 12-hour cancellation thing, and I had to pay $28 because I couldn't go to the class. And that's just insane because the membership is $59 a month. So I had to pay like basically half of the monthly membership fee for a class that I had to cancel because my chronic illness flared. So that was kind of unfortunate. But that is what I'm treating myself to, is that, like going to some yoga classes when I'm feeling good because I really like doing that. And it's a good way to meet people too. But I don't know, maybe I just find a gym that I really like and see if they have like a chill cancellation policy. A lot of gyms don't. That's the problem. So, anyways, something to look into for sure. I really like ClassPass. I just wish they were a little bit more lenient on their cancellation policies. So, anyway, that's kind of my report, my catch up with how I'm doing. And we're gonna have a couple more solo episodes throughout the rest of the year where we'll do a little bit more catch up and kind of talk about some of the cool things that are going to be coming up for the holiday season. So I'll be back with all of that. But today's topics, we have like three, are reclaiming identity beyond your chronic illness, managing fatigue, and then kind of creating like a low energy exercise routine. These topics I have wanted to talk about for a long time, but I had a hard time figuring out like how to kind of like mesh them into an episode and, like if they should all have their own episode. And yeah, I just decided that I want to talk about all three of them today, and I'm gonna try to make them blend together, but we'll see. They're kind of like different topics that I just really want to talk about, and they don't feel like long enough for their own episodes. So we're just gonna see how it goes and try to blend them together. So the first topic, kind of reclaiming your identity beyond your illness. This one's really close to my heart because if you've been navigating life with a chronic illness for a while, you know just how like all-consuming it can feel. And it's so easy for that illness to start to shape not only what you do, but how you see yourself. And I want to talk about this because finding pieces of yourself outside of your diagnosis can be a very powerful journey. And I think it starts with acknowledging just how deeply a chronic illness can impact our sense of identity and our sense of who we are. When you're managing symptoms every day, dealing with fatigue, with pain, or with other challenges that come with having a chronic illness, it can feel like this illness is always kind of in the driver's seat. And when so much of your energy and focus is on coping, it's only natural for it to take up a really big part of who you are. And the hard truth is, chronic illness doesn't just affect your body, right? Like my endometriosis and my pain doesn't just affect my physical body. It affects how I see myself, it affects my goals, it affects my career, and it affects my relationships. All of my relationships, my relationship with my parents who may not understand exactly what I'm going through, my relationship with my friends, with the rest of my family, with my coworkers, with my partner. And that's a lot. I mean, on top of that, society places this really huge emphasis on productivity, on doing and achieving. And I don't know if that's just because we live in America, but there is a huge emphasis on being productive. But when your body has limits, those pressures can feel a lot heavier. And we might start to feel like if we're not achieving in the way that we used to, or in the way that we're supposed to, or even in the way that we may have planned or envisioned for ourselves, that we're somehow less valuable. But that's simply not true. And I say that, but it's hard for me, even now, still, when I know that that's not true, to not just inherently place emphasis on those things. It's so hard for me to not find value or place value from myself in how productive I am in the day or the achievements that I reach or receive. So, let me share a little bit about my journey. There was a time when I felt so wrapped up in my diagnosis that I struggled to see anything outside of it. I really had lost track of all of my hobbies, and the activities that I used to love. And there were days that it felt like all I could do was focus on managing my pain and managing my symptoms. But over time, I realized, and full transparency, I'm still trying to come to terms with, that if I was going to find joy and meaning again, I needed to reconnect with parts of myself outside of being someone with endometriosis or someone with an illness. So I started really small. I tried getting back into some of the things that I'd loved before my diagnosis. For me, that looked like picking up hobbies that I hadn't done in a really long time, or even trying out new things to see what I enjoy now. There was a really long part of my life, which I mean, I'm still kind of doing, but a big part of my very early 20s where I just tried everything. I tried so many things, so many hobbies, different. I knew that I really liked crafting, so I tried tons of different crafting, and I knew that I liked yoga, so I tried different types of yoga. And it was really hard too because like after my diagnosis, it kind of felt like things had changed because my body was slowly not being able to do things that like I wanted to do. Like I couldn't go on runs because I would get flares. I can't do high, very, very high, like hit high impact workouts because I get flares. So trying to find alternatives, but still in the realm of the things that I enjoy. I let myself explore without putting a bunch of pressure on it. And you know what? Slowly, these things started to shift my perspective. Rediscovering these pieces of myself brought this new sense of like wholeness and being more than my illness. And that shift gave me even more emotional energy to handle the hard days. And honestly, like I'm sharing this because it's something I believe that anybody can do, even if it starts really small at first. Just the act of letting yourself try and explore and rediscover something meaningful outside of your symptoms can have such a powerful impact. And when I say it's something that I believe anybody can do, I'm not saying that it's easy because it's not. Like this is something that like I'm still working on, and I've had my diagnosis for 7 years. Like this is something I've been working on for 7 years. It's not an easy process at all. But if you allow it to be, it can actually be kind of fun because in reality, like you're working on yourself and you're spending time with yourself and you're rediscovering things that you find enjoyable and things that make your body feel better and make your symptoms more bearable. Because in reality, you have to put the effort into yourself because no one else is going to put that effort in. You know what I mean? If you're feeling like your illness is taking over your identity, here's a couple steps maybe you would try. So, first, consider journaling as a way to reconnect with yourself. Doing journal prompts like, what are some things that I used to love before my diagnosis? What are some things that I did in childhood that brought me joy? For example, one thing that I go back to in childhood that brought me joy was gymnastics and cheerleading, which I can't really do anymore. But in a form, I think that like dancing would bring me joy. So I'm finding like ballet classes and dancing classes and stuff like that that um are accessible and maybe a little bit lower impact that I could still do, or doing like stretching or Zumba, like stuff like that. Another thing that I journaled about, like my child self really enjoyed, was fashion designing, which I'm not a fashion designer by any means, but in my small business, I create collections and clothing and I do crafting. And that brings me joy. That's why I started doing that stuff because I really enjoyed doing that stuff when I was a kid. Different levels, but you get the point. You could even journal what activities bring me joy in general. Baking brings me joy. Okay, can I do baking in a pain flare? How can I make that more accessible to me? Things like that. You might even find that there are some things you're interested in now that weren't a part of your life before your diagnosis, and that's amazing. Branch out on those things too. You're allowed to change in life. So you don't always have to do the things that used to make you happy. You can branch out and look for things that might make you happy now. And maybe there's things that you're like, oh, maybe that would be fun. Try that. The next step is setting small, realistic goals for yourself. And it doesn't have to be anything big or time consuming. You can just start with something that feels good, something you can ease into. Maybe it's reading about a topic that you're curious about. Okay, maybe you're curious about learning how to sew. Okay, pick up a book and read about it. Watch a YouTube video about learning how to sew. Trying a new craft. Maybe you're curious about an educational topic, cycle syncing, cycle tracking. Pick up a book about that. Go to your local library, rent a book about that. Watch a YouTube video about that. We have so many resources these days. Listen to a podcast about that. Those are things that you can do that are not going to flare your pain. You could also just like spend 5 minutes writing down things that you want to try, and then you have goals to look forward to for things to try. These goals aren't necessarily about productivity. I want to really try to integrate that into your brain, that it doesn't have to be about productivity. They're about reconnecting with yourself in ways that feel manageable. And if that's too hard, if there's a part of you that's thinking, why bother? I want to remind you that every small step toward nurturing your identity is important and it's valid. It's not about getting back to who you were before your diagnosis, because the truth is, you're someone new now, someone who's faced a lot, someone who's had different challenges, and someone who may need to redefine parts of themselves. But there are still parts of you that you can bring joy and meaning to, and you deserve to explore them. And I want to really emphasize something that's really important. So, your worth is not tied to your productivity or your physical ability at all. And I know that that may not stick the first time you hear it, and it didn't for me. I guess I'm going to tell you again. So, your worth is not tied to your productivity or your physical ability. Chronic illness can make us feel like we're failing somehow. And if we can't keep up with the world's pace, our value isn't enough. But it's not true. Our value doesn't depend on that. Our identity is rich and it's whole with or without an illness. You're still you and you're still valuable regardless of your diagnosis. I really, really encourage you to try to let go of any pressure that you might feel to be productive or to prove your value by what you can accomplish physically. You're enough as you are in all of your disability, your chronic illness, in your complexity. It's okay if some days you're focused on resting. That's valuable as well. And if some days you're focused on exploring, both days are just as valuable. This journey of rediscovery isn't about ignoring your illness or pretending it's not there. It's about reclaiming a sense that is a little bit deeper and more resilient than your diagnosis. So, even in the smallest steps toward rediscovering your passions and your goals, and maybe even redefining your passions and your goals to fit your new lifestyle better post diagnosis, these interests and everything can add up in ways that bring joy and fulfillment back into your life, which is really the main goal, is to bring you joy and fulfillment into your life and to allow your diagnosis or multiple diagnoses more of like a redefinement of what you want in life. And instead of it being something that takes over your life and control of your life and makes it so that you can't do your goals and your interests. I just really want us to focus on redefining that and finding ways that our goals and interests can still happen, but in a more reasonable and accessible way that doesn't feel like you're fighting your chronic illness, if that makes sense. Okay, so now I want to move on to another topic that many of us are constantly managing, which is chronic fatigue and learning energy management techniques. So, fatigue can be one of the hardest symptoms to deal with because it affects literally every part of your day. And I'm not just talking about being tired. This kind of fatigue can feel super overwhelming, like your energy is just drained completely. So, let's talk about some ways to manage that and make the most out of the energy that you do have. First, I want to acknowledge just how heavy this kind of fatigue can feel. It's not something that's fixed by a good night's sleep, by adding a couple hours of sleep, or by a nap, or by extra coffee, although I definitely do try with the coffee. Chronic fatigue is unique because it comes with a full body exhaustion that can be physically and emotionally draining. And for many of us, it can feel really invisible to other people, which makes it even harder when people don't understand the real impact it has on daily life. So let's talk about ways to manage it that don't require pushing through or pretending that your fatigue is not there. Instead, we're going to try to work with it, find ways to navigate it so that we still have really fulfilling days, even with limited energy. Some energy management strategies that I found are pacing, prioritization, and just some general energy conservation advice. Pacing is one of the most effective ways to manage fatigue. Pacing is all about like balancing activity and rest, which honestly, most of us probably do this inherently if we've had a chronic illness for a while so that we don't burn out before your day is halfway through. And so most of us like learn how to do this naturally with chronic fatigue. So here's kind of how it works. Instead of pushing yourself to complete a task all at once, you break it down into smaller steps with intentional rest breaks in between, which can be really hard to do as well because Sometimes if we're having a high energy moment, we're like, okay, now is the time to use this energy that we don't really have that often and get everything we want done. And I used to do that. I used to be like, okay, I have this like space of energy. I'm going to get everything I possibly can done in that because regardless, I'm going to be tired after. So I might as well use it. And I still do that sometimes, but most of the time I don't actually think that works the way that I want it to. So I've started to try to take intentional rest breaks, which can be really hard too, because it's hard for me to like actually take a break, but I found that it helps. So this can feel really strange at first, especially if you're used to doing all these things in one go. But honestly, it can be a game changer in managing your energy. For example, if you need to do something like laundry, try breaking it up. Sort clothes in one session if you do sort your clothes, which I don't. I only sort my towels versus my clothes, but whatever. So, say you sort your clothes, take a break, and then come back later to load the washer. Listen to your body's signals and take rests before you're completely worn out. Pacing is about finding a rhythm that works for you, where you can balance what you need to do and what your body is capable of at that moment. So, taking more intentional breaks, or it's going to feel really weird at first, but eventually you will start to actually realize when you need the breaks before you're completely burnt out. Another helpful tool is making priorities of things. This means choosing the tasks or activities that are most essential to you on a given day. And I like to think of it as kind of creating like an energy budget, just like you budget your finances. You're setting aside energy for tasks that are the most important for that day. And normally I do this at the beginning of the day or the night before. I'll write out a list of to-dos and I'll put the things that are most important at the top. So those are the things that I need to focus my energy on, my energy budget. And then the things at the bottom are things that if I do have energy, I'll get to it. And if not, they'll roll over to the next day. One technique you might try is the 3-2-1. Start by choosing 3 high priority tasks that you need to get done, and then select 2 lower priority tasks that would be nice to accomplish, but they're not super important. And then finally, you pick one fun or relaxing activity that you can look forward to. That way, you kind of have a balanced day, even if you only get through the top 3 things. Some specific energy conservation techniques that might help are sitting instead of standing, using tools and assistive devices, and planning around peak energy times. So, sitting instead of standing for literally as many tasks as possible, like preparing food at a table, rather than standing at your counter, which has been kind of a game changer. Ooh, or my favorite one that I discovered recently is sitting down for blow drying your hair instead of standing up. Why did I never think that was allowed? I don't know, but for some reason, I have never thought that I could like sit down while I'm blow drying my hair instead of standing up for 20 minutes. Game changer, light bulb moment. Using tools and assistive devices. So this could be anything from a shower stool while you're shaving your legs because your girl with POTS, like bending over to shave my legs and then coming back up. Let's not pass out in the shower, okay? So a shower stool, to cooking tools to save you time and effort, a cane, a walker, like so many things that you are allowed to have in your life, okay, to make your life easier. You don't have to hesitate to invest in things that help you make daily tasks easier. You deserve the support that you want and you need. And just because you are able some days doesn't mean that you're any less for using tools on days when you need them. You're allowed to do that. And then planning around peak energy times. For a lot of people, there are certain times of the day when you just naturally have a little bit more energy. For me, it's like early morning. So if I wake up at like 6:30, I'm honestly my most productive like 7 to noon. Anything after 3 o'clock, I'm down for the count. So try to schedule your high priority activities in those times where you have peak energy, and make sure you give yourself rest or downtime, especially when your energy is at its lowest. Now let's talk about those days when fatigue feels too heavy to even start the smallest tasks. These are the days when basic activities feel like they require more energy than you could possibly have. And on days like these, I really encourage you to let go of any guilt and pressure to be productive. Instead, focus on what feels more restorative for you. For me, that might mean letting myself completely rest, maybe watching a Hallmark Christmas movie or listening to a podcast, or even just like sitting outside on my balcony to get a little bit of fresh air. Another helpful practice is creating a low energy toolkit for days that feel really overwhelming. This could be a list of gentle activities or items that bring you comfort, like cozy blankets or an easy to make snack, or just having a glass of water or tea close by. Your toolkit is going to be different, and it's there to help you feel supported on really extra hard days. And if you're struggling with feeling guilty or frustrated about needing rest, try to remind yourself that rest is not a sign of weakness. It's actually so important for managing chronic illness. Taking time to rest is not weak or giving up. It's giving yourself what you need so that you can rest and recharge. Honestly, for me at least, if I don't give myself to rest and recharge and listen to my body will make me do it anyways in the form of actually becoming sick or having a flare or something like that, where I don't have the choice now. So I try to really listen to my body and give myself space to rest to avoid my body doing it for me. Let's talk about exercise, specifically for those days when energy is really low, but you still feel like moving your body in a way that feels good, which is something that is really important to me. Like, I like to have some type of daily movement every day, no matter what, even if that means literally like a 10-minute walk. So, or like some gentle stretching or like a short yoga workout. Like, I like to have some type of daily movement. I have a blood clotting disorder, so I feel like it's like super important for me to get up and like move every day, no matter what. But some days that can be extremely challenging. If I'm having an active flare or I have extremely low energy, it can be so hard to get up and move. And in those days, I like to bring out like my pain toolkit. I got a walking pad recently and I work mostly from home. So I've been using my walking pad. And I have found that if I go over 1.7 miles per hour, I get a flare and I get really bad cramp. Also, what has started helping me before exercising, before I start my exercise, I use the Some Days Cramp Cream and I put it all over my stomach, my lower abdomen. And this is kind of like an icy hot feeling. So it's a little bit more tame than icy hot, and it's also made with plant products, completely natural. So it's a lot safer for you and a lot better for you. But I definitely like lather on the Some Days Cramp Cream on my lower abdomen where I know that I might have some cramping. And then I also put it on my lower back because I get a lot of sciatica and nerve pain as well. Put it on my lower back, kind of hitting the main areas where I get a little bit of cramping. I think that this is just important before I'm doing any type of exercise, and I let it sit there for a little while too to kind of like start to activate, because then I'm already kind of like prepping for anything to happen. And of course, like during this, I listen to my body. And if, like in this like trial period where I was walking like 2.5 miles per hour, and I would listen to my body. If I started to get cramping, I would slow down or I would stop, which again, you should. If you start getting a flare, you should slow down or stop. But I found that kind of putting on this cramp cream first has helped me be able to still do some exercising while figuring out like what exercises are okay for my body. And if anybody wants to try any of the Some Days products, they also have a castor oil stick, which really, really helps me on my high pain days. And they have a heating pad as well. You can use Chronic Chronicles for 15% off site wide. When we think of exercise, it's really easy to picture intense workouts or activities that require a lot of stamina. The reality for many of us with chronic illness is that movement needs to be gentle, adaptable, and sometimes really short. And here's the thing, movement can still be beneficial even if it's gentle. Even if you're not sweating up a storm or you have an extremely high heart rate, it can be beneficial. It can boost circulation, improve your mood, and even ease certain symptoms without draining your energy. So, today I'll walk you through some low energy exercise ideas and tips for creating a routine that feels accessible and supportive to you. And like I said earlier, this sometimes comes with a lot of trial and error. And for me, I'm still figuring it out. So, but these are some things that I do that I found don't give me a flare. So, first, I want to emphasize that movement doesn't have to be intense to be valuable. Even on the days when you're feeling exhausted, small, intentional movements can help with stiffness and improve your blood flow. And this can reduce the feeling of being like stuck in your body. So, mindful stretching. Stretching can be a great way to release tension, increase flexibility, and just like gently wake up your body. And I like to focus on areas that tend to get really tight when I'm like sitting all day at my desk for work or laying down in my bed for extended periods of times because I'm in pain. So, like your neck, your shoulders, your lower back. Um, Here's a quick stretching sequence that you can try. So you can do neck stretches, shoulder rolls, and lower back stretch. So for your neck stretches, you can just gently tilt your head from side to side and kind of hold a couple of deep breaths. And then like switching to the other side, shoulder rolls, rolling your shoulders slightly forward and backward, releasing any tension you might be holding. And then lower back stretching. So while you're sitting or laying down, you can bring your knees to your chest and just kind of like gently rock side to side. And I do these like quite a few times throughout the day, especially like when I'm like in a flare, once my flare comes down a little bit, honestly. But like if I'm laying down all day or if I'm sitting all day at my desk, I try to do these stretches a couple times throughout the day. And it literally takes like a minute. It's not like I'm doing this for a long time. And then some seated stretches. So these are really good because they require minimal energy, but they're still engaging your muscles and improving circulation. So these are some seated exercises you can try. You can do seated leg lifts while you're sitting in a chair. You lift one leg at a time, holding it for a few seconds, kind of like pointing your toes and extending your back and forth. And then you just do like a couple seated leg lifts back and forth a couple times. Arm circles. So I feel like everybody has done arm circles, but you just extend your arms out to the sides and you slowly make circles forward and backward. And this is just like, getting your blood flow moving again. Ankle circles, rotate each ankle in circles, loosening up your joints. This all kind of like these seated exercises are actually things that my doctor has told me to do. Like when I'm sitting for, like, if I'm on a road trip or if I'm sitting all day at my desk or if I'm on a plane because I have a blood clotting disorder. So these are things to try to avoid me getting a blood clot if I can't stand up and walk around. But I found that if I'm in a flare or something, these are really easy to do while I'm like sitting or laying in bed. And then the last one is gentle walking or gentle yoga and breathing, which I talk about breath work all the time. And again, like I just never thought I would. I never thought I would be a breath work person, but I really think it helps. Practicing like deep breathing can help calm your nervous system and it gives you a sense of like groundedness when you're in a lot of pain. So you can try a simple technique like the 4-7-8. So you inhale for 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. And this can be done literally at any point in the day. I do this a lot when I'm like in bed and I can't fall asleep and I just like my mind is racing. I'll do this over and over like a couple times in my head while I'm in bed trying to go to sleep. And it does definitely help me fall asleep after, which is great. And then some yoga poses that are my go-tos that I really like are child's pose, cat cow, and then like seated forward folds and kind of like holding your knees up to your chest and just rolling on the ground. If you look up endometriosis yoga on YouTube, there are some like really gentle yoga that is just helps and it's not exhausting. It's more just like soothing and moving your body a little bit. Okay. Now, how to create a routine that works for your low energy days. You can start by choosing a few movements that feel good to you. Maybe it's a combination of some stretches, some seating exercises, like a 5-minute walk, a low, slow 5-minute walk outside so you get a little bit of sunlight and vitamin D, and maybe one set of 4-7-8 breath work. You can put them together in a short sequence that lasts anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what feels manageable to you. Like I said, this is not about putting pressure on yourself. It's more about doing small, manageable things. So if it only feels manageable to do something for 3 minutes, do it for 3 minutes. That's better than nothing. And remember, your routine doesn't have to look the same every single day. You can listen to your body and you can adjust as you need. I do that all the time. Some days it might just be a couple of seated stretches and maybe a deep breath. And that's completely okay. That's something. That's giving yourself some movement. And the important thing is that you're giving yourself permission to move in a way that feels reasonable and gentle and kind to yourself that day. One last tip is to pace yourself even with your gentle exercises. So rest when you need to and take pauses between movements if you need to. And think of this as like a practice in being nice to your body. There's no rush, there's no pressure. You're just doing a couple of simple things and taking breaks between them. On days when even 5 minutes of movement feels like too much, it's okay to rest. If you feel like doing 3 stretches is too much for you, don't. Just rest that day. And that's okay. Your body will benefit from even the smallest efforts, and your body will also benefit from you resting. I just want you to honor your limit as a part of this process. Just find your limits and find your boundaries and stick to them and listen to your body. I want to remind you that movement doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's routine to be valuable. The goal is to find what feels good to you, to reconnect with your body in a really nice way, and to celebrate small moments of movement, no matter how they look. And whether it's a few stretches, a deep breath, you are doing great. You're doing great. And I hope these tips gave you some ideas and some encouragement for reclaiming your identity and finding things that make you happy and dealing with low energy, dealing with fatigue, and figuring out how to have like some movement in your day. And you deserve to feel connected to your body in a way that's supportive, no matter what kind of day you're having. And you deserve to live a life that feels like it's your own and not like it is in constant challenge with your chronic illness. You deserve to live in a body that you feel like you have some part of some type of control of. I think that's all I have, guys. I think that wraps up today's episode. I hope that you found some value in that, and I hope that here's my homework for you. Here's my homework. I want you, after this podcast or whenever, I want you to get out a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be like a really cute journal. It doesn't have to be anything. Just get out a piece of paper and write down 5 things that either bring you joy or that you want to try. Okay? That's task number 1. And then either later today or tomorrow or whenever you feel like you can come back to it, I want you to take those 5 things and I want you to create one actionable thing that you can do from that. So, for example, if in your list of 5 things you say that baking brings you joy, or maybe baking is something you want to try, okay, then the next day I want you to come back and I want you to say, okay, what do I want to bake, and what would make being able to bake accessible to me? Okay? And in that, I want you to come up with a game plan for that. So say you want to make cinnamon rolls. Okay? Find the recipe, figure that out, save that somewhere, and then figure out during that process why that wouldn't be accessible to you and how you can make it accessible to you. So say it's not because you have to stand for a long period of time. Okay, can we do this at a kitchen table where you're sitting? Okay, yes. How can we do that? And then maybe it's not accessible to you because you can't do the rolling pin. Okay, how can we make that accessible to you? Is there a tool that you can use, or do you live with somebody that can roll the dough out for you? So these are the type of things that like I'm trying to reframe your thought process from being I want to do these things, but I can't, to I want to do these things, and this is how I can do them. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And that's your homework. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. You guys mean the world to me. And if you found something useful from this episode or any of the episodes, please rate and review this podcast and subscribe so that you always get new episodes. I'm also posting all of the video episodes on YouTube, so go follow me there at Lexi Halloran. Um, and comment, like, rate, review, subscribe, all the things. Interact with me, please, so that way we can continue to grow our community so that it reaches all the people that it needs to reach, and we can continue to do really good things and help people and stay in touch for some really fun things coming up for the holiday season. I am so excited. There's going to be a lot of really nice things. That being said, make sure you follow the Instagram page at Chronic Chronicles Pod, because that's where the majority of like everyday details are going to be coming out. But I will make sure that I talk about it on the podcast episodes as they come out as well. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will talk to you next Monday.